There we go. Great. Thank you for your patience. Hello, my name is Steven Stump, and I have a story that I would like to share with you. I had just started my role as a gerontology student recruiter and was assigned my first international recruitment trip. I was excited for the opportunity and eager to prove myself in the new role. I boarded a plane and landed in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. One thing that I like to do during work trips to relax is go and watch a drag show and experience the local queer culture. I found a drag show at a gay bar within walking distance from my hotel, and while I was waiting in line, I read some reviews about the show online. I saw that the police had recently raided some of the gay bars in Kuala Lumpur, and as I was reading about the raids, I saw a phrase that terrified me. Homosexuality is illegal in Malaysia. This hit me like a storm. I immediately started walking back to my hotel as the thoughts started racing in. Am I safe to be in this country? What does this mean for my work? If my Malaysian counterparts know I'm gay, are they going to report me to the police? Do I need to tell my boss I have to abandon my job responsibilities? And if I choose to stay and hide my gay identity, how am I going to pretend to be straight and do my job well? I chose to stay, pretend I was straight, and felt the constant pressure to behave a certain way the entire time. My experience is not unique. Up to 68% of gay and queer Americans experience workplace discrimination via negative stereotyping, derogatory labels, or verbal prejudice. Queer employees use social code switching and identity management strategies to stealthily conceal their authentic identities while abroad. For instance, individuals may choose to alter their topics of conversation, speech patterns, or adjust their identity expression. And they do this to minimize stress, anxiety, and physical harm. This is a way for queer professionals to prevent abuse, violence, and discrimination. This is further impacted when queer professionals must deliberately alternate their linguistic and behavioral patterns to navigate international workplace environments that may persecute or discriminate queer individuals. For instance, like my experience in Malaysia, where sodomy is illegal, code switching successfully feels like the matter of freedom or prison. To this day, 67 countries criminalize consensual same-sex sexual acts, and up to 12 countries still impose a form of the death penalty for sodomy. That means that almost half of all the countries in the world still discriminate against queer individuals. During international work assignments, queer professionals feel like they have to code switch due to concerns about hostility or discrimination. And this is rooted in social, legal, political, or familial factors. Queer professionals feel like they must code switch to avoid awkward or unwanted attention. Code switching reflects the broader dynamics of panopticism. Panopticism is where an individual adapts behaviors and they embrace self-presentation under perceived surveillance. This is an embracing a concept of stealth or invisible oversight. Panopticism derives from the 18th century prison system, which depicts a central surveillance tower in the middle of the cells. The surveillance system acts as a metaphor for self-surveillance, since one is unaware when one is being observed. This system produces desired self-control, body performance, and social behaviors at the conscious and unconscious level. A common approach for queer professionals is to balance professionalism with authenticity to navigate their identities in international environments. An individual can define both professionalism and authenticity through avoidance tones, whether situational, conscious, or unconscious. A situational tone is where a queer professional is code switching, but only in specific situations. Conscious is when they are actively code switching the entire time, and unconscious is when they're not even aware that they're code switching. For instance, on that trip to Malaysia, I was consciously code switching to portray and maintain a facade of straightness. Queer professionals use 4 management strategies to stealthily conceal their authentic identities during international work assignments. The management strategies display differently across countries and industries with varying legal and cultural differences. Particularly in regions that may reject their identities, queer professionals actively marginalize their non-heterosexual identity to align with their own self-perceived standards of professionalism. The first management strategy reflects a shift in concealment and cultural adaptations. A common approach is the selective disclosure of information, where an individual chooses to withhold or neutralize information about their sexual orientation as a form of avoidance. Some individuals may choose to omit or not tell all the information about, let's say, a significant other or partner. For instance, on a personal trip to Brunei, where sodomy is illegal, I would simply respond with no if asked if I had a wife or girlfriend. This was an easy way to avoid discrimination without lying, but not telling the whole truth. Beyond personal interactions, some queer professionals choose to avoid entire countries that they deem as unsafe due to geopolitical influences or perceived perceptions about the culture. Or rather, they choose to only go to countries that they deem safe. Others may choose to adapt their behaviors to align with local cultural norms, such as limiting the expression of their sexuality or only using private settings to do so. On a trip to India, I would start by asking my colleagues and counterparts questions about specific cultural norms as a way to adapt my behaviors to match the norm, disclose enough information to feel included, but not outed. The first management strategy shows how queer professionals balance professionalism, authenticity, and career access to navigate international environments. The second management strategy focuses on time adaptations. This is where a queer professional may assess contextual cues to determine when or if to disclose their queer identity. For instance, a queer professional may rely on signs from their colleagues or the organizational culture that it's safe to share, such as hearing a colleague talk about an experience of going to a queer bar or having a queer friend. Disclosing authentic identity without these contextual cues can feel risky, especially in ambiguous environments. And thus, this leads many queer professionals to remain in the corporate closet. This is further impacted on short-term international assignments, where there's little time to assess safety and build trust. Others may choose to adopt identity bifurcation. This is where an individual creates 2 separate personas, one for the professional self and one for the personal self, valuing professional relationships over personal expression. On a work trip to Saudi Arabia, I would portray my professional identity when I interacted with my colleagues and counterparts in work settings. Then I reserved my personal, authentic, and gay identity for when I was with my friends. While the second management strategy protects personal safety and career access, it comes at an emotional cost: identity fragmentation, stress, and burnout. The third management strategy reflects a shift on appearance and communication, where queer professionals adjust their speech, mannerisms, and appearance when working internationally, especially in conservative regions or environments. They may shift conversations or neutralize their topics of conversation to align with more masculine-coded topics, like sports, to blend in. Other queer professionals choose to avoid queer-coded language like, "Hey sis," or "Yes queen," while some may minimalize their hand gestures to maintain a more neutral presence. Others may choose to adapt their appearance and dress more conservatively in certain regions to align with more traditional corporate norms. This is done because they want to assimilate into heteronormative society. And one visual marker could be a wedding ring, where wearing it allows them to assimilate, but it is an acknowledgement that it may prompt questions about a significant other and force them to disclose their authentic identity. Others choose to adapt a more straight passing persona, making identity through omission rather than lies. Some queer professionals have the privilege to pass as straight due to race and gender conformativity. However, not everyone has that privilege. On a work trip to Oman, I perceived the workplace environment to reflect hyper-masculine characteristics. So I took out my earrings, deepened my voice, and stiffened my body posture. The constant need to self-monitor carries a high emotional toll, revealing how intersectional inequalities amplify the cost of safety while abroad. The fourth management strategy focuses on a shift in professional responsibilities, prioritizing professionalism over authentic expression to navigate unfamiliar environments. This strategy protects the self and certain aspects of the identity that may be stigmatized, especially in cultures that link queerness with taboo. On that first recruitment trip to Malaysia, I prioritized my professional goals rather than being authentic in every work setting. Some choose to maintain a more controlled, composed presence, disclosing their authentic identity only when contextually safe or relevant. This guarded approach reflects placing priority on professional demands to manage teams, close a deal, keep others employed, rather than being compelled to be authentic in every situation. Even in certain countries where homosexuality is both legal and widely accepted, like Germany, I would still start every work interaction from a more formal perspective. The fourth management strategy shows how balancing authenticity and professionalism create a complex and nuanced decision-making process that's influenced by job role demands, personal values, and the cultural context. The four management strategies display differently across varying cultural and legal environments. Queer professionals navigate these varying cultural and legal environments to prioritize their safety while maintaining career access. Understanding these strategies is crucial for both individuals and organizations to understand and navigate workplace dynamics with dignity. For organizations sending queer employees abroad, understanding these management strategies places emphasis on top-down support, managerial engagement, and inclusive workplace policies. Providing cultural integration resources and industry-specific guidance can make the experience for queer professionals better and encourage their global assignments. Stealth identity concealment extends beyond avoidance tactics to reveal safety concerns about these management strategies and how professionalism and the professional identity can eclipse all other facets of the self. Understanding the avoidance tactics also reveals the fundamental human need for normalcy, acceptance, and belonging. Understanding those safety concerns allows us to realize that the professional identity reveals concerns for both physical and emotional safety, but also the fragile trust amongst us, our leaders, and our business partners. Trust cannot survive on empty rhetoric, especially around authenticity. Instead, it depends on the emotional outlets, confidence in others, and the perceived perceptions of geopolitical influences. The decision to conceal or disclose one's authentic identity depend on more than personal comfort. It rationalizes the cultural trauma and the instinct on risk versus belonging. Familiarity, empathy, and compassion all rationalize an individual's disclosure choices, forcing society to accept that an act of concealment is a human response to structural systems. Shifting global and geopolitical influences draw other diverse human identities into the landscape, including race, gender, religion, socioeconomic status, and more, making authenticity and trust more intersectional and complex. For society to evolve, we must embrace compassion, empathy, and a sense of others' lived experiences. Increasingly diverse generations like age, gender, religion, disability, neurodivergence, and beyond will make stealth authenticity more prominent and visible in the years to come, growing louder, clearer, and impossible to ignore. Thank you for taking the time to engage with the evolving reality for queer professionals worldwide. And I encourage you to ask the next question. What if authenticity wasn't the afterthought, but rather the blueprint? Thank you.